Hello and welcome to today's webinar, where we're going to be providing an introduction to Community Repaint members to introduce Paintcare, the new industry solution to leftover paint. First up, we're going to hear from the Paintcare team about how this initiative will work, and then the Community Repaint team will talk about the implementation of Paintcare and what it's going to mean for Community Repaint Network members. We're going to have time for a Q&A session at the end, so please do say hello in the chat and drop any questions that you have in as we go along. And then we'll put them to the panel later on. So some introductions. Joining me today on the Community Repaint side, we have Martin Pierce, technical lead for Community Repaint, and we have Jude King, the project and development manager at Resource Futures. They're also going to be joined by 3 members of the Paintcare team, who Martin is going to introduce. So over to you, Martin.
Yeah, hello. So it's good that we've got Steve Snaith joining us from Paintcare. Steve is a consultant for BCF, the British Coatings Federation, and Steve has been aware of Community Repaint for a long, long time and very supportive of all that we've been doing. And then also joining him is Ben McClelland, who's a newly appointed operations manager for Paintcare, and also Jack Scriven, who's the administrator for Paintcare. So it's good to have them with us and telling us all about Paintcare.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Martin. So we've only got 45 minutes today, and I'm mindful that we've got quite a lot to get through. So I'm going to hand straight over to Ben and to Steve, who are going to be sharing information about Paintcare and what it's going to cover.
Good afternoon, Ben McClelland. I'm the Paintcare operations manager. So Martin mentioned Steve Snaith has been on the Paintcare project for a number of years, has been involved with the Paintcare from the start, and has been liaising with the members of the Community Repaint team. I'm just going to flick through a slideshow to explain some more aspects of Paintcare and what its aims and what we're trying to achieve with it. Okay, so yeah, we're going to go over our ambition, the process, the social impact, how we're funding it, and the proposed timeline that we have for the project.
It's a national programme to collect back leftover paint and empty packaging from consumers and professional painters and decorators. You'll know the background to this. In the UK, we estimate every year about 34 million litres of paint is left over. And of that, at the moment, only 1 to 2% is reused or remanufactured. Our objective is to build that to around about 75% of what's collected back. And the reason for doing this, the same as you're doing, we want to reduce the environmental impact of leftover paint and packaging. We want to bring these valuable materials back into reuse and remanufacture or recycle rather than going to incineration and landfill. And we believe there's a great opportunity here to work with organisations like Community Repaint to build the social sector so that we can bring more volunteers and more jobs into the sector. So those are our sort of key objectives. Yeah, okay, so these are our main objectives. So we believe that over a 5-year period, we will be able to collect back and remanufacture and reuse about 110 million litres of leftover paint. We want to reuse 75% of this material, which is a huge step forward from where we are now and providing plenty of opportunities for all. We also want to collect back the empty packs because these are also a valuable resource, both from the retail market and from the trade market. You'll see the numbers are slightly lower on retail because we think changing consumer behaviour when it's easy to put it in the black bin bag will take longer. The big drive for us here is from an environmental perspective. We will see a 50% reduction in the carbon footprint of leftover paint as we move to reuse and remanufacture and move away from landfill and incineration. So if we move to the next slide, please. So the process is simple. You know this process. So we're going to collect material back primarily for consumers from household waste recycling centres, but also from retail stores hopefully like B&Q and other national retail stores. And on the trade side, because they can't use the household waste recycling centres, we are using trade stores to collect material back. Any material coming in from trade stores will need to go through a national distribution centre in their own networks for us to collect from, because to collect from every individual store will be wasteful environmentally and financially. As we collect material back, it will be taken to transfer stations where it will be separated out into water-based, solvent-based paste, paint and empty packaging. The water-based paint then goes for reuse and for remanufacture, and there where we can't do that, other forms of reprocessing. The paint packaging will be recycled. We know we can clean and recycle plastic packaging, and we know that we can recycle the metal packaging, which you're already doing. And then the solvent-based paint will go for energy from. So that's a brief outline of what we're aiming to do. And this is just showing the targets here. So moving from 2% remanufacture and reuse into 75% reuse and remanufacture over the 5-year period. We do know there'll be some incineration left. We won't have moved away completely from solvent-based paint in the market in 5 years, but it will go down over time. And no doubt we won't collect everything back from everybody, so there will be some going to landfill as well. So that's the picture. As usual, that the waste hierarchy is really important. The more we can reuse, the more we can remanufacture, the better. We don't really want to be using lower level of reprocessing, but we will do so at the start until we can build capacity. And that's where we hope organisations like Community Repaint could help build this network. My final point on this slide is to say that Paintcare is not in competition with Community Repaint. Our objective always has been to work with organisations operating there already. We think we can provide a constant flow and large quantities of material which can be used through your network and other networks. So if we can move to the next slide, please. And this is just some of the things that we think. You'll recognise the slide, the picture on the right there. That's one of yours. But we see huge potential. We don't see why we can't have a social enterprise network, Community Repaint, on all of the household waste recycling centres where we work. You can take off that what you can use, and we can take the rest away as Paintcare and reprocess that material. We see opportunities to grow that reuse and remanufacture working with yourselves from around about 500,000 litres today to, we think, within 5 years, around about 4 to 5 million litres. It's a partnering exercise, as I said before. This is not about competition. And from your numbers, that means we can impact through the community on a lot of lives of many people. And then we will create some work, volunteer and full-time jobs here. So that's the big picture of what we're trying to do here. And if we can move to the next slide, please. I'm going to hand over to Ben now, who's going to take you through some of the more detailed material. Ben?
So this is more of an aspect of what we're doing with the upcoming trial. Eventually, we're looking to have over 2,000 collection sites. So if we're successful with our trial that we have upcoming, and we've already completed one through HWRC sites, we've proven that process through. And we're about to do another trial with the retail stores and the trade stores to test the backhaul process through their own networks. The aim of which is to understand that that it works, two, that we can do it with the correct paperwork, and the volumes and costs should be cheaper. Should be cheaper on the costs, and the volume should be more manageable with them going through. This relates back to the slide that Steve showed before with that process. So it's the drop-off point in store, from the store to the distribution center, and then our waste management partner for the trial will collect from the distribution center and take it back to their transfer station. Once we go to a national level, that aspect of this will remain, but it will obviously be spread out across multiple waste management companies, because the scale and volume of this and the geographical locations will require us to work with more than just one, and also more than several retailers as well. So once we've got the water-based paint back, obviously we can only successfully recycle water-based paint at this time. Hopefully there's a future solution for the more solvent-based products. But initially, what we're looking for with the water-based products is to either go into remanufacture. There is an established Paintcare program in the USA where they bulk and separate their paints out and turn it into new paint through a remanufacturing process. Here in the UK, it's a mechanical separation and dewatering of paint to take that paint element out and take that packaging away separately and clean that up so that we can get the packaging recycled. And then eventually we'd like to get to the point where we have this full mechanical separation process to recycle the material correctly in such a way that we're taking the TiO2 out of the titanium dioxide out of the paint and sending that back into paint remanufacture. It's a nice clean process for us, and that's the aim of where we'd like to get to. So Steve, back over to yourself for this one.
Yeah, so as I was saying before, we see a lot of opportunities to work together here. As I said before, we've got some opportunities to work on joint collection sites on HWRCs. And I don't see any reason why, as I said before, we can't have a collection point on every HWRC. There'll be some limitations, obviously, on size and things, but the majority, we think, could have a collection point there. There may well be some operations for you to help sorting and segregate paint on some of your bigger sites, depending on what sort of operation you do. We will produce a lot of paint for reuse and would look to yourselves to help sort that and get that out into the community and wherever else we can use this material. That's got to be our primary goal, because clearly that's the best environmental solution. We then know that we can't reuse everything. We will need to remanufacture, and that's another point where, again, if there are opportunities to grow the remanufacturing capacity in the UK, that's a real need for us and could be a real benefit for those who want to get involved in that or more involved in that. Again, though, there should be a large supply of paint coming back to make the whole model, the whole business model, financially more secure and more sustainable. And likewise for empty packaging, we know this can be done. It's done already on a small scale over here. We need to do it on a much larger scale. And it might be we just take packaging from yourselves as well. I know at the moment that's a cost to many of you, the empty packaging, for those involved in remanufacture and blending. And we can reuse that and reduce your cost base, but also get material back into use. I think the final point that I'd like to say is within the Paintcare program, we have put a reasonable budget for communication on a national scale to promote the reuse of paint and also the purchase of remanufactured paint, because, you know, I've talked with Martin about this before. There's no point in us bringing all this back and not having a market for it. So we want to continue to create the market. We have some alternatives if it doesn't work out in the UK. There are some other options, and a lot of what we're doing will start on day one, but by year 5 will look a very different picture to where we start from. And we recognise that there's a journey involved in this. But those are some of the areas that I think, and we think we could work together on to build this social sector. And so if we can move to the next slide, please. So we've talked about funding. This is going to be funded by the paint manufacturers, the decorative paint manufacturers in the UK. They will pay a membership fee to Paintcare Limited, and Paintcare will then use that money to pay for the collection and reprocessing of that paint and packaging. Clearly, the manufacturers will want to try and push that fee down through their retail and distributor customers, and they will no doubt want to try and see if that can be passed on to consumers and painters. We've done quite a lot of research in the area, and we do know that consumers and painters are very pro this sort of scheme and this program. There's been a huge change in people's understanding of sustainability, and our research showed that consumers were saying, we should be doing this now. Why aren't you doing it now? So we think that can work. It'll mean something like an extra 10 pence a litre on paint going out into the primary UK market. So that funding, we think, will be consistent and will provide the funds to enable us to collect back and reprocess the paint. So that's how the funding is going to work. And I think it's back to you now, Ben.
So we discussed earlier, and we mentioned that there will be a trial. We're conducting a trial within the West Midlands for circa about 32 retail stores. When I say retail, I mean trade, as Steve mentioned before. So your Dulux, your Crown, and your Leyland trade stores for trade people to be able to take paint back to. And then we're doing a limited trial through some B&Q stores within the regions that are showing there. And we've got a set budget for it. So once that budget's gone, we've kind of got to wind it down. But we've calculated and aimed for a 3-month trial. And as I said before, this is to trial the backhauling process to understand that it works, it's feasible and cost effective, rather than us trying to do a round robin of paint collections to every store around the UK. This is deemed, we think, to be the simplest and cheapest way of doing it. So we've partnered with Biffa within the West Midlands, and the reason we've kept it to within the West Midlands is Biffa have a good processing site in the north of the Midlands, and the stores geographically are well dispersed, but at the same time within a good region, close enough together so we can go around and manage them all as well. So that trial, as I say, will be for a period of 3 months. There's a few things that we're in discussion with the DFT and the Environment Agency in terms of paperwork for derogations that we need and exemptions that we're looking for the transporting of hazardous paints and some of the paperwork aspects. So we're just waiting for some feedback on those. And we're looking to begin the trial in February of next year. Back over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Ben. And so, our timeline really is we are planning to launch the national programme, or certainly start the rollout on the 1st of January 2027, and we will start collecting in the money from the paint manufacturers. Moving back, that means that we need to do our major piece of engagement with the manufacturers and the retailers in this quarter, and we're already underway with that. So that's one of the key things. We need to bring some staff on board, and Ben and Jack have joined to start the ball rolling, and we will up that as we get the green light, hopefully towards the end of this year from our manufacturing members. And then we'll need to start our contracting work towards quarter two, end of quarter two, quarter three, with waste companies and processors and all the other parties involved in the programme. We've also got to do some work with government to make sure they're on side with what we're doing. We've had some very constructive discussions with DEFRA, but we need to make sure that continues as well. So that's the rough timing of where we are at the moment. Critical period over the next 3 months is really to get agreement from funders to make the programme go live. So that's a brief overview of what we're up to. As I say, I think there's a great opportunity here for us to work together and to build the reuse particularly, but also remanufacture and everything else I've said. But I'll stop talking now, and I guess we hand back to Ben McCabe.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Steve. We'll now go over to Martin, who's going to provide a community repaint perspective on how Paintcare is going to operate and how it can benefit the network. Martin, all yours.
Thanks, Ben. So as I've just been hearing from Steve and Ben, there's going to be an increased reuse paint available in the UK. So for all the members in the UK, for all our members, there could be more paint. Now, we're talking here, obviously, a lot about the community organisations who are Community Repaint members, because obviously, and on this call, we've got some people who are from local authorities or from waste management companies. And obviously, we're not looking about them taking more paint in, but this is an increased paint supply for a lot of Community Repaint members who are community organisations. You can see there for councils, waste management companies, there's potential for collection of the non-reusable paint. And obviously, through Paintcare, that'll be confirmed during 2026 as to how that could work. And as Steve has just said, possible financial incentives for taking reusable paint. Paint manufacturers will be putting a levy, as you've heard, on every litre of paint that's sold. And obviously that levy will be used to collect the paint and then redistribute it. So for Community Repaint members taking paint, there'll be money to be doing that as well. And then, of course, what this could also mean, greater public awareness, because there'll be a lot of publicity, a lot of communications going nationally. So great public awareness of paint reuse, which hopefully will help your footfall and your sales as well. And the opportunity for expansion of your repaint operation. So more paint coming in, money to be able to deal with that. And so it'd be great if more of our members are actually looking to take over warehouses, take over shops that are just all about paint. And there'll be money to do this. And as was mentioned in the Paintcare presentation, that obviously the possibility with more money coming in to be able to employ people, take on more volunteers. So more paint coming in and obviously finance to be able to do all this. And then there's been a Paintcare task force, which was set up over 2 years ago. We've had a place, I've sat on the task force for over 2 years now. That task force was meeting for every fortnight. It's stopped meeting for the last few months, and it's going to be starting again. But the meeting is basically regularly with paint manufacturers, trade stores, and other reuse organisations, where we talk about how Paintcare will look, etc. And so Community Repaint is very much sitting around that table and in making sure that reuse and remanufacture are kept at the top of the waste hierarchy. So what happens next? Well, We're exploring how paint from stores trial can go to community organisation members, which, as Ben just said, is starting in February. So all the paint, first of all, that's taken by BIFA, is going to be separated into what's reusable and what isn't. So we'll be looking with members to see around the UK how some of that paint or all of that paint can actually go to our members for reuse. So we're exploring that with Paintcare now. We would look, hopefully, some trial outcomes by June, and we'd look to obviously share those through Paintcare with the network on what the outcomes for the trial was for paint being taken back from stores. We're also, Community Repaint, wanting to recruit far more members to enable an increased amount of paint to be reused, etc. So in our network at the moment, we have over 120, 130 Repaint members. Obviously, many community organisations, some are on the call today, but then also Community Repaint is at nearly, into 2026, it will be at over 100 RCs, household recycling centres as well. But we want to recruit more community-based organisations to actually be able to take all these increased amount of paint. And one of the goals we have is that at least in every county of the UK, there'll be one Community Repaint member, and a big member who's able to take hundreds and thousands of litres of paint, not just 20 or 30 litres. And then also what we will do is circulate information that's relevant that we get from the task force meetings as appropriate via the monthly paint pad when there is information to be shared. And then, of course, any questions or comments regarding Paintcare, please do send them to myself, Care of Resource Futures. And hopefully we will be continuing with a dialogue as we go through the year, ready for 2027. But the main message for all our members, really, from what you've heard Ben and Steve say, is there's going to be far more reusable paint available, which will be great. And there will be some finance available to be able to distribute that. So not expected to take paint for nothing, which will enable you to take on more people and also, more importantly, upgrade your premises as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Right, we've got a few questions. We're going to start with one from Caroline, which is, how does this model support small social enterprises who already remanufacture or plan to remanufacture? Will our supply chain take a hit by Paintcare, and do we have to purchase Paintcare? So Ben or Steve, would you like to?
No, you won't have to purchase from Paintcare. We will be paying a gate fee for anything that's processed by yourselves. So I see it more as an income stream, a potential income stream for you. And Paintcare is not going to set up its own remanufacturing units and things like that. It's going to use what existing infrastructure is in place already. So I think it's a benefit to you rather than a threat. That was certainly the way we've designed it.
One from Karen is, we've spent a long time developing supplier relationships with suppliers and trades. This will impact Repaint initiatives. I've been talking to waste management companies similar to BIFA, and this seems to impact on all of that work. Yeah, so a comment there. Jude and Martin, do you want to talk about how you see it from a Community Repaint perspective for how this will impact members and their existing relationships with suppliers?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I think it's just going to mean, as we've said, a lot more paint available, because there's going to be paint coming in, much more to be saved from disposal and looking for outlets. So that's why we want to have more Repaint members. But all our existing members, basically how we see it is there's going to be far more paint available. And that's a simple message. So it's a plus and a win-win situation.
Jude?
Thanks, Ben. I wonder if this is quite a good conversation piece, actually, from prompted by Karen's comment, in that obviously there's currently a direct supply into her organisation from the various different supply chains, whether they're from trade or retail. But I suppose the question that she's really raising is, will that paint have to then come from somewhere else? Will they have to change the structure of the way they're working?
Yeah, great. And Ben, you wanted to?
Yeah, it's kind of in answer to what Jude is just saying, really, in that we're not really looking to come into anything that's already existing and try and divert paint that's for routes that you already have established. This is to pick up the excess paint in and around the UK that's either going to landfill or going for incineration. Paintcare is devised by the industry, for the industry, and for you guys as well, to divert that paint firstly through reuse. That seemed really important to us. Then remanufacture if it can't be reused, and then ultimately recycle. But in that order. So we're not looking to interrupt anything that exists. If you've got those relationships, fantastic. It's great. We're not going to do it. I think we're here to bolster it. We'll help you. We'll have more paint within the network to be able to give out to yourself.
Great. A couple of follow-up questions on that. One about Northern Ireland. So from the first paint reuse remanufacturing organisation in Northern Ireland, will there be shipping to Northern Ireland or use of a remanufacture plant out there, or to work with Northern Ireland's HWRCs to redirect paint to them? So yeah, is Northern Ireland going to be included within Paintcare?
In our plan, Northern Ireland is included. We've done a lot less work with Northern Ireland, so that will be later in the programme. But the plan was to include Northern Ireland. We've had some conversations with some of the HWRCs in Northern Ireland, but it's fair to say our plans are less advanced in that area. But we believe that we can work in Northern Ireland. We think there's demand there as well from the discussions we've had. So the answer is yes, but not day one, I suspect. Well, no, it won't be day one.
Okay, yeah. And then just another question on the financial support available. Is this would this include help to expand initiatives into neighbouring areas, for example, as part of the Groundwork Yorkshire's regional work?
So our funding will come primarily through gate fees, but we will look to see what opportunities there are to build capacity, because obviously without capacity, then we can't initiate our plans. So I think it's on our agenda to talk through some thinking like that. But again, that bit's not particularly advanced. But our main funding to people will be, if you take paint or remanufacture paint, then there will be some form of gate fee to be agreed and discussed. And we need to make sure that that's sustainable. It's not a one-off thing. It's a longer-term sustainable number. And obviously, we're going to be very dependent on the organisations to kind of give an indication of what that number would be.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. A question here from Mehdi. As part of accessing Paintcare resources, is there a possibility of receiving funding to support future expansion? So yeah, could Paintcare funds be used to expand existing?
I mean, the answer is yes, but I said the mechanism probably would be that, we need to talk with people about what we could do in advance of volumes going up. But obviously, the more volume you take, then the more money, and hopefully that means the investment case will be there.
Just to couple that, I think it's important to point out that as the Community Repaint team, one of our roles is to support the network, and obviously with this potential for expansion in terms of availability of paint, it might well be that our team on the ground can help our Community Repaint network members to look at other potential funding pots to help them expand whilst, and prepare. So it could be sort of a two-pronged approach, but that certainly is the kind of support that we hope to be able to offer our members as well, centrally, in terms of sourcing or pointing people towards different funding streams and maybe helping with the applications as well.
A question here regarding the point about being paid to take paint. Given that schemes currently buy in remanufactured paint to sell, how will the new arrangement work? Will the cost of the paint be subsidised for members? Martin?
Yeah, you see Cam, I know Cam's scheme very well. I think that's something to be sorted out. But you also put a question in there, there's now Cam before that. And I think the thing is, you were saying that possibly repaint schemes would take a hit, etc. The answer is exactly the opposite. No, all this is about is helping repaint schemes. And as Steve said, not in competition, but making more paint available. And so you and your paint shop, I can see you taking on 2 or 3 more paint shops, because there's potentially going to be lots of paint available that you'll be getting money for as well, and be able to expand what you're doing. But with you're buying in, I know some of the recolor paint at the moment, maybe that, you buy more in, whether it's going to be subsidized. Obviously, that's something that we can be looking at, because it may be that, not that we have too much paint, but we need to obviously look with the remanufacturing centres about how that works and what the price is, etc.
Thank you, Martin. And just a clarification question. Does that mean that Paintcare is a producer pays model? Is that accurate as a description?
So Paintcare as a model is a collector of paint, which then we contract people to remanufacture or reprocess or reuse. So we're not a manufacturing unit in that sense. And it might be that some of our paint manufacturers want to buy some remanufactured paint, and they would then go out as individual companies and look to people in that area. But that will be for each manufacturer to decide what it wants to do. But no, Paintcare is not a remanufacturing company.
I've got one here, potentially for Jack. Where will you be advertising the Paintcare trial?
So as it stands with the trial, it's not formally going to be advertised, as the trial is mainly aimed at tradesmen to gather data on the backhaul process. Some retailers will be doing their own internal communications with particular tradesmen and tradespeople, but we believe that the word of mouth will be sufficient at this stage. And then obviously, if the scheme does roll out nationally, we'll work on some actual marketing materials for that.
Brilliant. Okay, great. That's it now, I think, in terms of all of the questions have been answered. I want to say thank you very much to Steve, Ben and Jack for joining us from Paintcare, and to Jude and Martin for joining us from Community Repaint. If you do have any questions about Paintcare going forwards, please don't hesitate to contact Community Repaint through the usual channels, obviously through Martin, Lily, David, Jude and the Community Repaint team. They'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have and put you in touch with anybody as needed. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for coming along today.